Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of the Economic Times Cutting Try Stories, an initiative by ET Edge. On this platform, we identify leaders and talk about their personal and professional journeys. And we also discuss about their traits and qualities that make these leaders stand out in the industry across different sectors and verticals. I am Dimple Bajwa, your host for this session. Today, I have been joined by a business technologist who has over 30 years of cross functional experience in IT across a wide gamut of areas in IT governance, compliance management, IT outsourcing, software development, vendor management, business delivery, marketing, infrastructure, and service management. Without further ado, let me now welcome Mr. Avinash Velhal, CIO of ATOS India. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks, Dimple.
So
Pleasure to be here.
let me start by asking you about your career journey. You've worked with some big names, like L&T, Siemens, and now Atos, and have done several leadership hats. How do you think your career has shaped, and and were you always sure of what you wanted to do?
Okay, somewhere I had a dream of being some leadership role by age of 40. So luckily that dream realized. But as usual, it's more of a sweat and a hard work in the initial years compared to nowadays. People just wish to be in leadership roles in a short while of time. So it was been an arduous task for me to come up through multiple, but I'm very happy to go through the entire process and learn along the way about people, processes, and it has been a great journey. By profession, being an industrial engineer, I look basically for productivity improvements and kind of those of areas. So the earlier job which I had was kind of a consultancy job with the Bombay Productivity Council, which helped me really look at the industrial part of our environment, working in various factories, doing those time studies and stopwatch studies with all workers glaring at you because this is a guy who's going to do productivity for us. So that was a quite experience beginning of your career, opening up in those sense. We did a lot of work in Mazgaon docks and various industries. So after that, I was in part of L&T, where I was responsible for setting up the industrial engineering department, the initial computerization and ISO 9000 certification for a heavy fabrication. So it was a very interesting time looking at heavy engineering setup, looking at since ISO came in, we had to really go through the entire processes, each and every department, materials, inspection, production, purchase, procurement. I mean, that was my grounding in in an organization, large organization, where you had to really understand and focus and see. And that I think was a unique characteristic in my career to really make me aware of how things work, which normally you don't get a chance in knowing all the departments, how they function and how they operate kind of scenario. And after that, the 5 years I spent in L&T, I was awarded the gold medal for some suggestion scheme which I had adopted over there.
Wow.
I've been like since going through that was kind of a great learning over there. Then I joined Siemens Limited. Of course, Siemens, of 17 years of Siemens, gave me a broad perspective of every department except HR. Maybe I initially started off as a general organization and systems guy over there. Then I moved to marketing for nearly 4 5 years. When SAP was going on, I was the guy putting up rest of the stuff about hardware, networks, and all that stuff. So it was a great learning to understand sales and marketing, which we had never done. So I had said to my boss, I am just a plain engineer, and why are you putting me into marketing? So he gave a very interesting response. See, I become a director. There has been no training. You just go and do it.
Right. I agree.
So nobody comes and teaches you. You have those skill sets and you develop those. So that was an good kind of a captive word for me. So from that, I really said that nothing is going to be a challenge for me. I'll be open, and I was being Mr. Fix-It guy for all these years because if any issues come up, I was the guy to go and sort it out. So Siemens gave me a very varied background. So marketing, then I was handling software development team, uh, which we were like doing all this payroll processing and administration for the internal as well as some external customers. We had developed a product for it. So I learned product software engineering over there hands-on. We had a large database. Then I moved and took over managed services kind of a setup because we were looking out for, apart from SAP, setting up a kind of an environment where you also have multiple revenue roles. So managed services, I really had to get into understand hosting business, getting software outsourcing and all. We did a lot of work along with Germany that time. So I was responsible of setting up that department. And then I was running it as a managed operation services over there, which was the initial phase. And Fujitsu Siemens also was there, it moved out. So I was handling the channels part for that. So it was quite an interesting task to know all about these aspects. And then I then moved over to the CIO department, handling network strategy, I mean, carve-outs and mergence over there. So that was for all Siemens group of companies, around 19 plus across India, working with the region to look at the networks and all. So then I moved over to SISL. I became the CIO there. And I think 14 years now I've been in the CIO role, of course, which has been going from cluster to region to now growing market. So it's an toss. I've been doing a lot of stuff across the various region, being rollouts and all. I was a zero mail champion over here. So when we had this unique project going on across, I think which was talked of much 5 years back, where our chairman had launched a zero mail process, and I was acknowledged as a zero mail champion for my work around in the region. So quite an active activity. So it's been 34 years, and I just keep wondering where did those went by so fast.
But if you come to think of it, 34 years, like it seems to be such a long period. Um,
Yeah,
so I mean, when you talk about it, of course, 34 years, it seems to be like so long. But yes, from your experience, the way you summed it up, it seems to be very interesting, sir.
yeah. I used to actually laugh on people like, how can a guy can be in 25 years in a company? And here is a great example, 25 years, and that too in an IT company. So nobody does that.
Right.
But I have been very happy doing multiple roles and multiple stuff. So I've been always growing. So it was never a question of what and how. It has been a very interesting life.
Right, right. It sounds very interesting. So, since you talked about changing roles and working with different departments and different teams, this somehow brings the question that there are people, there are millennials out there who've just started their careers, or maybe 4 years, 5 years into their careers, and then they realize that okay, this is not I wanted to do this. As I want to follow some other path in my life, and they just think about switching their fields. What would you want to say to them?
See, basically, initial career is learning and not earning. And that is the challenge today with the millennials. They want to quickly gravitate to leadership positions without really cutting the teeth on the real aspects of life. So when you become a fast growth, you have a challenge how to handle the issues, like right from I work right from connecting the wires, setting up a LAN, doing all the stuff. But then when you are looking at of a leadership role, you need to know what your people are doing and how they are doing, and that grounds you to come out with solutions. Today, the demand from everyone is getting a solution and as quickly and as economically as possible. So if you really do not have that grounding, you don't spend time really learning through your processes and your this thing. Technology is yes, but then the main crux of any enterprise is how the processes are there, how people work, how do things move. If you don't really understand that, you find it very difficult to manage.
Right, right. So there is a lot, I'm sure, that goes behind, being a leadership, getting to that role where where you lead your own teams and your own organization. So like you said, leadership is, it's more to know about your people, how they are doing and what they are doing. The fact that you are a leader and have been leading teams makes me curious to know about the leadership styles and the leadership and your leadership traits. Can you tell us that one or maybe a couple of leadership traits in you that differentiates you from the others? It can be anything on a personal or a professional level, or maybe something that you would want your team to inherit from you.
Okay, so there are two phases in an enterprise. One is a leadership role where you, from an individual contributor, move to a leadership role that's in kind of a middle management. But as you grow higher in the run, you need to be a coach. And being a coach is you just have to guide. You not have to dictate. The moment you start to dictate, and it's a lot of fallacy today that you have to be leader. It really is a recipe for disaster because things are so specialized now. Things are so varied. You really can't have all the skill sets in you. But yes, you have the people management skills, which is my strength and empowerment, and that's what you need to leverage. So you coach people, you guide them with your experience, you guide them with examples, and leave them free because they know what's best. They just need a guidance and a assurance saying that what they're doing is right and not what need to be done. So that's actually my trait which I've been successful. I'm more of a coach and a people manager, and more of so that like I empower my people so that they take decisions and I stand behind them. So uh, I have three golden rules for my subordinates. One, if anything happens, I'm the first one you should tell me. I shouldn't know it from anybody else.
Right, right.
Number one. Number two, simple rule is make mistakes. You are empowered because I really don't want to micromanage. You have completely empowered and I'm backed by you, but mistake is only once. You can't have multiple mistakes. So you have to learn from it. So
Mhm.
I will back you. So they feel more empowered. They feel really kind of a responsible and they go ahead and do. And come to it options. Don't just come with this is a problem. It what won't work. You are the person you know best. You know what are the options. Based on my knowledge level, my skill level, I can guide you what is there, what are the pros and cons. But it's a collaborative thing. It's not that I tell you and you do it. I mean that never works, and it's high risk strategy. So best is you collaborate and you ask them what is the best issue, what are the solution they think, and then you can always tailor it out. So these are the three rules which I follow, and I'm been very happy. It's been great. My teams have been with me for nearly more than 10 years. The rest of the departments, everybody's changing. My team is solidly with me. Even earlier, where I was to work, even Siemens, when I was the spams team, they still remember me. And the best compliment I got is, "We admire you as a boss." So that's a very rare thing you are for a boss. And respect is kind of a mutual thing.
Right, I totally agree. So it is always good to have a coach instead of a boss at work whom you can reach out to in case you make any in case of any issues or any problems. And I really admire the golden rules, the three golden rules that you stated. So following, I want to know, how important is it for a leader to stay connected to their team emotionally and mentally? Since you mentioned about people management skills, I would really want to know it from you.
Yeah, it has been a very important aspect earlier also, but now more so in the current way when we are really working virtual. So people should not feel disconnected. Earlier, at least when you used to be in office, you used to see an employee, talk to them. But the way the things are moving now, 1.5 year and going ahead, things are not going to be the same. It's more virtual. So there you need to really emotionally connect and mentally connect. You not only need to connect them and just like for the sake of kind of some function or something, but really connect them to understand what motivates them, what attracts them. You need to understand them. So once you know that, the working is very easy. So it's more of a people management and being with them rather than above them makes a lot of difference. So a lot of guys, my subordinates have told me, sir, you don't feel like a boss, you're like a friend. But that needs to be developed by each one. So
Wow, I think
because
it
end
that
of the day, once you're outside the gate, you're still a normal guy. So
right.
humility is the most important point when you want to be a coach. Boss can be always a leader, but being a coach in that position is very difficult.
I'm sure, and I'm sure it must be wonderful to hear your teammate, team people tell you that you're more like a friend than a boss. So going forward, let's rewind a little. If you were to go back to the early years of your childhood, school, or maybe later in college, did you have any ambitions, that you followed later on?
Left to me, actually, I wanted to be an engineer and somebody have a leadership position by age 40. And God's grace, both I achieved. And in those days, things were pretty simple. Let me tell you, it was
Right.
not so complicated as now. I mean,
Mhm.
so many options, so many career paths, so much of competition. I mean, it was a one-way street. You just get into engineering college, get it, move out,
And
catch
you
a
become
good
an
job,
engineer.
and then and then there are only two things: you become an engineer, a doctor, and that's it. If you want to do something with your life, so things were actually easy for us. I really pity today's com- millennials. They have so many challenges. They're more aware about their what they want and what their career paths compared to us. If you really ask me the truth, I really never knew what I'm supposed to do, but it happened. So
Right.
it happens.
I think that's the case with a lot of people. They don't realize until they are into that field, like excelling in that field, doing well, and then they realize that, okay, I was made for this thing. I was made to. I was, born to do this. This was my field of interest.
True. At least in my age bracket, most of the colleagues which I have been talking and all, we didn't have a choice as such, right? So you had to make things work, make things meet, and deliver. That's it. And you need to just grind yourself. But now that's not the case. And okay, there is a plus and a minus in both the cases. So it depends on how do you take it up in life and where do you reach and how do you work around.
Right, right, right. So we've talked about your uh, career. We've talked about your work, your college days. Also, you took us beautifully through your college days. Now, I'd like to understand how you manage to maintain a work-life balance. How does one remain detached from work to have a balanced life and mental peace?
I've been lucky. My nature has been, I mean, I have a bit of a spiritual inclination too. I always disconnected. Like I always ensured I stuck to the time, and had a lot of flags from my bosses saying that how can you leave on time? I mean, that is something unpardonable. And fortunately, good or bad, in my entire 34 year of careers, I have been always shutting shop on the dot. It's not that, of course, now. So, primarily, work-life balance is on your discipline. Like what you also have a life apart from what you do. So, I go back to your earlier question when you said what you wanted to do and what you're doing.
Right.
Most of the times, we never get an option what you want to do or work. We just take it and do it. But it's very essential. You need to have your hobby or you need to have a parallel thing which you also develop, and that is what makes your life more exciting, more livable, and de-stresses you.
Right. De-stressing yourself. I think that is very important in today's time with the kind of and the amount of work we all are doing. It's very important to de-stress ourselves. So here I would want to know what are your hobbies and how do you fit them into your schedule?
Okay, my biggest hobby is reading, and I love to read and science fiction. So I've been at constantly that my reading speed has been very high. uh, I I used to earlier read. Now how I catch up is I have audiobooks. I get utilities in mobile which reads it out for you, so that when you're
Right.
traveling, when you're walking, you're just waiting for something, just plug in and you are on. So that it's that fashion. So I do a lot of reading. I normally read science fiction and other stuff, nothing very deep and business kind of stuff.
Right.
uh, and second is traveling. Life is but experiences. So love to travel, and I love nature.
Mhm.
So these are the two passions which I have. I dance a lot. So I'm known in my Seattle community as a well good dancer. Uh,
Since you mentioned traveling, just curious to know when did you last travel? With the pandemic, we've all been missing
uh,
traveling.
I just went to Kolhapur 2 months back. I went to Bidar 1 month back. So just before this thing closed down,
Second wave.
I went on a lot of places that way. Otherwise, now I'm planning to go into camping. Just got my entire equipment stuff.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
That's
that
something.
has been something which I'm looking up. My dreams are like first right now is go RV camping. That is camp in your car and move around. So I have got all the stuff, tent, sleeping bags, axe, whatever, bushcrafting and all. And then after retire, maybe buy a sailboat and sail the world.
Wow, that's an altogether different side of you we are looking at today. That's amazing.
Yeah, because finally, as I said, you need to carry when you go back. You're not going to carry any wealth. You're not going to carry any
Right,
ownership. You're going to
right,
carry your experiences. And
right.
being a foodie, travel and eating, two things.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Here, I would like to bring in your family. So I want to know what are the family activities you indulge in. I mean, we all spare our weekends for families or post work hours. So, what are the things that you do with your family?
Family, it's general stuff, watching movies. Sometimes we play board games, kind of stuff, but not so much. We love traveling out, so we go out more often.
So they enjoy
That's,
traveling, all of them.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. That's wonderful. This would be my last question to you. Technology has evolved enormously in the past year. What is that one key change that you want to bring in the society with the use of technology?
Technology is very ubiquitous now, and going ahead, it is becoming more and more, and it's just becoming transparent. Like earlier days, you need to know server hardware. Now, technology is becoming embedded into kind of modules. To give an example, just like a car. I mean, you don't need to know how the car works, but you just need to know the gears, accelerators, and stuff.
Right.
Similarly, technology is getting into, in spite of all this complexity, they are going to come into more modules. You have like AI modules, you have a lot of stuff. What you need to do is the kind of people who are going to come need to be more creative and creative solutioners rather than the technocrats what we have today. Because you will have those components and you have to weave a solution for business and you to leverage which solution, which technology comes through. So you really need to have a creative balance now rather than a technology balance, and that's the shift which is happening slowly. You may call it digital officer, you may call whatever, but that's the shift which is happening. You need to look at what the business needs delivered, what are the components you have available, and how you can view out a solution for them.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we come to the end of this Cutting Chai Stories interview. It was great interacting with you, sir. And seriously, I thank you for answering all my questions with such spontaneity and such zeal. There is so much to take away from your experiences. It was truly an amazing interaction with you, sir. Thank you once again for
Thank you,
joining
Dimple.
us for this session. This is Dimple Bajwa signing off. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mint. Same to you.